So, in the previous class, we were trying to prove Wagner's theorem. Wagner's theorem says that a graph is planar if and only if it has no K5 or K33 minor, which are called Kuratowski minors. Now, we started proving what is called the Kuratowski's theorem, which is slightly different. It says that the graph is planar if and only if it does not contain a K5 subdivision or a K33 subdivision. Now, so it is kind of easier to prove Wagner's theorem, and then we will show that they are actually equivalent, which I can give you as a homework maybe. So, to prove this Wagner's theorem, we first proved the following lemma, which I call lemma A. This we proved in the last class, that every three connected graph, which is different from the complete graph on four vertices, contains some edge which we can contract so that the remaining graph is again a three connected graph. So we proved this. And now we observe that given a graph F and a graph G which contains an F subdivision, then clearly F is a minor of G, right? So can you tell me why? Can anyone tell me why this is true? Abhinav? Okay. Yeah, so G contains an F subdivision, right? So you remove all the remaining edges, right? You get an F subdivision as a subgraph. Then you just contract all the subdivided edges, right? So that it is no more subdivided. So you will get F, right? Which is of course a minor by our definition of a minor. So now one direction is clear, that Wagner's theorem implies Kuratowski's theorem, right? Because so now we just need to prove the converse, right? That Kuratowski's theorem implies Wagner's theorem. So that part I will give us an exercise. So let us first prove Wagner's theorem. Okay, so this is that which I call lemma B, that if G is a graph which has a two vertex cut, that you have a set of two vertices whose removal uh, separates the graph, right? Now, so suppose you have a two vertex cut, right? XY is a two vertex cut, then you consider the graph that you obtain by removing X and Y, right? So you get at least two components in this. Now take any component of this graph, right? After removing X and Y, then what you do is that you look at the subgraph induced by uh, you know the this component together with these two vertices, right, that we have just separated, and forget about the other vertices, and then add an edge which connects X and Y, right? So you add a new edge E which connects X and Y. Then basically you have one of the components together with the vertices X and Y and the edge XY. So this is called a marked XY component. Okay. So you have marked this component with the edge E. So lemma says that so each marked XY component of G is isomorphic to a minor of G. Okay? So if a graph has a 2-vertex cut, then each marked xy component is isomorphic to a minor of G. So this is what we want to prove. So can anybody tell me why this is true? Nishank? Deepak? Or anyone? Okay, so let me try to put it. So what we have here? So we have this like we have this graph, right, where xy is a separating set, right? So we have now once you remove this, you have several components, and take some component, let's say C, right? Now then I add the edge connecting x and y. Okay? Now what I'm saying is that, so this is called a marked xy component, right? So you have the component C together with the x and y and the edge added between x and y. So we are saying that this is isomorphic to a minor of G. So why is this true? Well, since the graph was having a 2-vertex cut, uh, now if you take any other component, right, you have at least two components, right? So you take any other component, let's say D, right? Now this xy component, right, not necessarily the marked one, right, xy component containing D, which means that D is a component, which means that it is connected together with x and y, which means that there is some x to y paths in D, right? So take this x to y path in D, and if you contract this x to y path, you will get an edge between x and y. Right? And you keep the remaining vertices in C intact, then you get this graph, which is basically a minor of C, right? So you can remove the remaining things in D and otherwise, keep the vertices in C as it is, then take the path between x and y and contract it, you will get a marked xy component. So we have the result, right? So if H is an xy component, and x py be a path in some other xy component of the graph G, then H union P is a subgraph of G, right? And hence it is isomorphic to some subdivision of the graph G plus E. So which means that H plus E is a minor of G, right? Because the path we can contract to get this edge. Yes. Yeah. So when I vertex, yeah, that's what we meant. Yeah. So yeah, essentially, maybe I should have explicitly mentioned it, but I think that was true. Yeah. So yeah. So what I meant is that, like, the graph is like too connected, because when we're trying to prove about this planar thing, like, so if there is a cut vertex, I mean, like, or different components, then we don't have to worry about that, because we can always work with two connected things. And why is that? Because if one of them is say, so if the graph is planar, of course, each of the components after removing like the vertex x, right? So together with the vertex x, each of these blocks are basically, right, if there's a cut vertex, must be planar. Is that clear? Because you consider any embedding, right? Each of these must be incident to the same phase, right? Because it's a cut vertex. So we can just look at one of them, right? So we can always assume that it is two connected. Okay, yeah, so if so you have this graph with a two vertex cut, and then every marked xy component is isomorphic to some minor. Okay. So okay, let me also point out that, like, so we don't really need the graph to be two connected. It's just that the two vertex cut is basically a minimal cut, right? So if it is a minimal cut, then we are fine, right? If just a single vertex x or y is not a separating, then we are fine. Okay. Is it clear? Okay. So our third lemma is the following: that if G is a graph with a two vertex cut xy, then G is planar if and only if each of its marked xy components are planar. So can somebody tell me why? Okay, let me put it in another way. That suppose you are given that, right? So why don't you prove one direction? Right? So let us take that the graph G is planar. Then can you tell me why each of its marked xy components are planar? Uh, what did you say? Uh-huh. Yes. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, but we in fact proved that if a graph is planar, all its minors are planar, right? So we just proved in the previous lemma that like every marked xy component is a minor, right? Yeah, so that will also follow. I mean, what you said is fine, but yeah. Okay, so now let's try to think about the converse, right? So now I am given, I'm giving you this graph such that and a vertex cut such that each of this marked xy components. So let's say C1, C2, Ck are its marked xy components. Then each of them are given to be planar. Now, can you which means that it has each of them has a plane embedding, right? So now can you construct an embedding for the graph C using this fact? Hmm? Can somebody tell me how to construct an embedding using the fact that each of these are indeed planar? Each of the marked xy components are. Okay, let me give you a hint. So given a planar graph, right? So suppose you take any embedding of the planar graph, right? So you can take the embedding of the graph onto the plane, or you can also embed the same thing on the sphere, right? Now, using the fact that one can embed this on the sphere, we can see that like given a planar graph, we can make any of its, so if you, once you have an embedding, you want any of the faces, you can make sure that that face is the outer boundary, I mean outer face, right? Because all you have to do is that you assume that like you have embedded this on the sphere, then you just put a pinhole on whichever face that you want to make the external face, just spread it out, right? Using that hole, right? You just assuming that it is like kind of made of rubber, you can just spread it out, and then once you get then you get a plane embedding in which this particular face is now the outer face or like the external face. Is that clear? Is that clear to everyone that you can make any of the face the external face? Okay, so now can you use this fact together with this fact that like each of the components are planar, each of the marked xy components are planar? I mean, you don't really need it, I mean, but it will be very useful to visualize this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you do that. Okay. Then what? Okay. So right. Okay. Hmm. See, essentially, you want to find an embedding for the graph, right? That's how you show its planar, right? So, are you telling me how to find the embedding, or okay? I mean, not yet completely clear to me. So, okay, 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 okay. So, you are saying that you have like some component like this with xy edge here, then another component with xy edge here. Okay. So if you have several of these, then what will happen? So what is the verification like? Y. So one here on the using the green, right? Basically, I have drawn, uh, like x and y here together, right? And now you have this embedding of C2, where x and y is on the outer side. Embedding of C1, x and y is on the outer face. Put them together. Now I get an embedding of the graph C1 and C2, right? Now what is? Tell me. Okay. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah. So you don't need to. Yeah. I mean that's why I said that you don't really need to use that. Like always you have to use the external face. But essentially, what we just need to make sure is that when you are going to put this new component into a face, you make sure that that is basically put it into a single face of the current embedding where the xy is there, so that you take this particular component, make the xy in the outer face, and then for example, in this embedding, like C2 component, for example, there could be a face. Oh, sorry. There could be a face, right? Something like this, right? I mean, this is the face containing the edge xy. Then in this face, I can embed my third component, right? For example, right? I can put it into this space because all I'm doing is that expanding the space large enough so that I can put this C3 inside. So now I do the same thing, right, for C3. I mean, look at the face containing XY for C3 or C1, right? Then I can put C4 there, C4, right? Then I can put C5. Each of these components I can put by finding an embedding for that component. When I add, xy is on the outer face of that embedding. So I just then identify x and y and I do this. So this way I can do as many as I want. So if you have k components, I get all of them together and gives a planar embedding of the graph together with xy. And then since removing an edge will still maintain planarity, I know that after doing all this thing, I can remove this edge xy and I still get the embedding of the graph in the plane. So therefore, G is planar. Is it clear to everybody? Is it? Okay. So here is the proof I have just written down. If G is planar, then by lemma B that we just proved before, the result follows. And conversely, if G has k marked xy components, which are all planar, then by this method that we just mentioned, we will get an embedding of the graph G plus E, and then I can remove E to get a planar embedding of the graph G. Okay, so using these two lemmas, right, B and C, what we have just shown is that we can basically concentrate on three connected graphs for proving Wagner's theorem, because uh, whenever you have two cuts, you can basically consider like that the several components from that and look at each of them and see if one of them is again three connected or not, because otherwise if it is two connected, then you can reduce it to even smaller graph, right? So if whenever there is a two cuts, you can reduce it further. So therefore, to show this theorem, we just need to look at graphs which are three connected. Okay. So now we show that every three connected non-planar graph has a Kuratowski minor. That is what we are going to show. Which are Kuratowski. So to take care of the trivialities, so we will assume G is three connected, simple non-planar, and we can assume that the number of vertices, let us denote by n, is at least 5. We can do this. Why? Yeah, so all the graphs on less than or equal to 4 vertices are planar, right? We know that. So so we can assume that we have at least 5 vertices, and then we use induction on n. So if you have at least 5 vertices in the graph, right? The graph is not, three connected graph on which is not K4, which means that at least 5 vertices contains an edge which we can contract so that the resulting graph is again three connected, right? This we know. So, so we are looking at graphs on at least 5 vertices now, and then we know that we can always find, which are three connected, so we can always find an edge which we can contract. Now, after contracting, let us say that the graph is called H, right, which is G contracted with xy. And if this graph H is planar, if it is not, if it is non-planar, then by induction, right, we can use induction and say that okay, it has a Kuratowski minor, right, because the number of vertices have reduced, right? X and Y has identified to a single vertex. So using induction, it will have a Kuratowski minor. So therefore, we can assume that after the contraction, we get a graph which is planar, right? So we found this graph which is reconnected, which is non-planar. I contracted an edge and I get a graph which is planar. Fine. So now, because it is planar, let us consider a plane embedding, let us say H tilde of this graph X. Now, since it has a plane embedding, we have this vertex xy which is identified. Right? It has become a vertex which I call Z. So let Z be the vertex, on the graph H, which we obtain by the contraction of the edge E equal to xy. So x and y are identified to get this vertex Z. Now again, since H is 3 connected and loopless, okay. So this is another question that I want you to think about, right? So graph is 3 connected and without loops. Then the neighbors of this vertex Z, right? The neighbors of the vertex Z they are some cycle of the graph. So you can either tell me why or you can take it as a homework. So why do you think this is the case? Okay, I can give you a hint if you want. So anyone has an idea? Joms? Sanjana? Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. It will give a cycle. Yeah, that is good enough. Yeah, that is good enough. Yeah. So another way to think about is like if you think about planar graphs. So you remove one vertex, what you get is a two connected graph, which is non-separable. Now, if a graph is non-separable, planar graph is non-separable, then every phase boundary is a cycle essentially. Okay. I'm telling you this because this will also help in the remaining proof. So every phase boundary is a cycle, right? Because there should be vertex, cut edge, etc. Right? Otherwise, the phase boundary will be cycle. So now, because of this, so you look at the graph right after removing z, right? So you have this graph which is planar, which is embedded on a graph, on a plane. Remove z, and then look at the phase in which Z was embedded, right? And this phase was, again, because of the graph was too connected, non-separable. This phase boundary is again a cycle. And Z is now sitting inside this phase. So therefore, the boundary is a cycle. Right? Therefore, we know that now Z is sitting in a phase, right? And the boundary of that phase is a cycle. And therefore, we know that Z lies on the cycle of the graph. Okay. So, yeah, so I have mentioned this, like any non-separable planar graph, which is different from K1 and K2, right, has each phase boundary as a cycle, and you can take it as a homework, try to write the arguments. And from this, we get the result. So now what we do, we consider the cycle, let's say, call it C, in which the vertex Z sits in the embedding of H. Right? So we have the cycle C, and you have the vertex Z is sitting inside it. So now what we want to look at is, so Z is the vertex that we obtain by contracting X and Y, right? Which means that the neighbors of Z are precisely the neighbors of X and the neighbors of Y together, right? That is what the contraction means. Now what happens if I try to, reverse this operation, that, I put now, like, uncontract, right, whatever it's called, right, the vertex Z, and then try to see what happens, right, what goes wrong, right, because after the contraction we know that the graph is planar, and then if I undo this, then I have to basically reach a point where, there is an issue, right? So the neighbors of X and Y, right, does not allow us to embed X and Y in this space. That is what it means, right? Right. Okay. So let us say that, so you so we have something like this, right? I don't know which are the neighbors now. If I, right, so if I uncontract this, right, I put this and consider the graph, let's say X minus Y, right, without this edge itself. Then I look at this, look at this thing, what you get after putting X and Y back, right, removing Z, and look at its neighbors. So what can basically happen, right? There are two things which can happen. And one is that, like, X and Y, like if you look at the vertex X and its neighbors, and Y and its neighbors, right, in the cycle C, right? All the neighbors of X and Y are in the cycle C, because all the neighbors of X and Y are the neighbors of Z, which are sitting in the cycle C, right? So the neighbors of X and Y are sitting on the cycle, and if it is possible for me to, let's say, separate the cycle into two segments, such that the neighbors of X and Y does not I mean, lie in the separate segments. And I can essentially, find an embedding for the graph g minus xy easily, right? Because all I have to do is that I just, draw the neighbors, of y here, and the neighbors x here, and put the edge. Oh, sorry. Also, if I want, I can put, and then I get an embedding of the graph, right? So, right. So when I uncontract x and the vertex z to get x and y back, then g minus xy can have either this possibility, or the neighbors of y and x are basically not in this nice fashion, right? It could be like, some of them are going like this. Some are going like this, right? And neighbors of, right, x are like this. So that they are cross. So if they are cross, then we have issues, right? So we are essentially going to boil down to these two kind of situations. That is what we want to mention. So consider the graph g minus e and the subgraph, let's say bx and by, which are formed by the vertices x and y with its neighbors, which are all sitting on the cycle C. Okay. So these subgraphs bx and by are x and its neighbors on the cycle. Okay. So there are two possibilities I mentioned, right? One is that bx and by avoid each other, which means that they they are they are not appearing. So basically you can separate uh, the cycle into two segments, right? So in which case they avoid each other. So therefore we just observe that this graph g minus xy has a planar embedding, and then hence we can also put, because x and y are in the same phase, I can put an edge connecting them, right? And hence I get an embedding of the graph g itself. So, but this is a contradiction to our assumption that the graph was not planar, right? So, which means this will not happen, right? If the graph was initially non-planar, this will not happen. So then what would happen? So there are two situations which can arise. So this is another thing which we want to, which I want you to finally prove. But let me put it this way. So we say that two of this bx and by are said to be skew. Okay. So b and by are said to be skew. So there is a terminology which is used, which is kind of confusing because it is overloading the notation that we have already introduced. So bx and by are called cycle. I mean bridges of the cycle. Okay. So basically, like not necessarily a single vertex, but some So in an embedding, like you have this not necessarily an embedding. You have the cycle, and then let's say that you have some subgraphs which are not some subset of vertices which are not part of the cycle, which has direct neighbors to the the cycle. So you look at these parts, like so and consider the this part together with the neighbors to the cycle. So they are called the bridges of the cycle. Okay. So don't confuse it with bridges. So I am just using bx and by to avoid this confusion. So so we say bx and by are skew if they have distinct vertices of attachment, which means that vertices of attachment are the vertices which are neighbors of these components in the cycle C. Okay, so we have the cycle C outside, right? and then y has these neighbors, right? Let's say u dash and v dash. X has the neighbors, let's say u and v. So we say that bx and by has distinct vertices of attachment, which occur in the cycle, in the order u dash v dash. So in the sense that the neighbors of one neighbor of x appears first in the cyclic order. If you go right, maybe in this order, right? So one neighbor of x appears, then the neighbor of y appears, then the neighbor of x appears, and the neighbor of y appears. Okay. So then we say bx and by are skew. Now, so bx is precisely x together with the neighbors in C, and y together with the neighbors in C are by, right? So if this happens, one can clearly see that this graph contains a K33 minor. Can you see it? Right. So together with the edge xy, you will see there is a K33 minor. Okay. So think about this. I want you to write down or basically come up with the way to get the minor. Not very difficult, but okay. So this is one possibility, and another possibility that can happen is the following. Okay? So one is that like bx and by are called three equivalent if both of them have exactly the same three neighbors. Both of them have exactly three neighbors, and both of them have exactly the same set of three neighbors. Okay, so the neighbors of x and neighbors of y are the one and the same, right? So u, v, and w are the neighbors of x, and u, v, and w are the neighbors of y. Okay, so if this happens, they're said to be three equivalent. So if that happens, of course, the only possible drawing is that x, y, and then x neighbors in the cycle and y's neighbors in the cycle. No matter what you're going to do, the drawing will be looking exactly this way, right? So this happens. Bx and by are three equivalent. Then you can see that the graph has a k5 minor together with the edge x. Okay. If you add xy, then you will see that the graph contains a k5 minor. Again, come up with the k5 minor. From this, construct this minor. So possibilities. I will leave it as a homework that suppose bx and by are overlapping, which means that they are not avoiding each other, right? We mentioned this. Then either they are three equivalent, okay, or they are skew. Okay, so either they are three equivalent or they are skew. Q means that we just need to find some subset of neighbors with this property, right? Q means that at least some subset of neighbors, right? Some subset of two neighbors and two neighbors were this. Three equivalent means that exactly neighbors for both Bx and By. Okay? So one of this happens. Either they are three equivalent, in which case we have a K5 minor, or they are skew, in which case we have a K33 minor. Okay? So prove this lemma E that if you have these two, we have the cycle and two vertices whose neighbors are there, like which has at least two neighbors each for each x and y in the cycle, and if they are not avoiding each other, which means that they cross, then only these two things can happen. Either they are skew or they are three equivalent. Okay, so once you have this, our proof is complete, right? Because we have shown that the graph is non planar. Then the bx and by will not avoid each other, and if they don't avoid each other, it has either a k3 minor or k5 K33 minor or K5 minor. Okay? So this is what Wagner's proof is. So here are some homework questions. So we observe that if G contains an F subdivision, then F is a minor of G. So which means that Kuratowski's theorem implies Wagner's theorem, right? Now to prove the converse, that is Wagner's theorem implies Kuratowski's theorem, prove the following two statements. So one is that if G has a K33 minor, then it contains a K33 subdivision. Okay, so any graph contain a K33 minor, but also has a K33 subdivision inside. Second statement is that if G has a K5 minor, then it contains a Kuratowski subdivision. That means that either a K5 minor or a K33, I mean K3 subdivision or a K33 subdivision or a K5 subdivision. Okay, then the second question is that given a simple graph, right, then show that G has a K3 minor if and only if G is not a forest, right? True or false? So okay, so if it is true, then prove it. If it is false, give a counterexample. Then the final question is to prove the lemma E in the previous proof, right? So, this one, right? Bx and by are overlapping. Then either they are 3 equivalent or they are skew. Okay, so with that, we'll wind up the topics on planar graphs for the time being. Okay. Now, next